name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Oh, I'm just going to let Rick in. Sorry. Okay. Okay. We come together in hope from different community groups, answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together towards the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Andrea. So the first item we have on 1.2 is the approval of the agenda. Did everybody receive a copy of the agenda? I know that we made a little bit of a last minute to add something in there. Was there any questions or comments, additions or deletions? No? All good? Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Paul. I'll make the motion.
Okay, so I've got Paul and Deborah. Thanks, Paul. So we'll do Paul move, Deborah second. Okay, perfect. We don't have any presentations this evening. Item number 3. Oh, sorry. All in favor of the agenda? All good? I see some approves. Perfect. Thank you. So presentations, we don't have any. Thank you. Item number 3 is the approval. Item number 3, the approval of the minutes. So these are the minutes from the November 3rd, 2020 Seac meeting. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? And if so, was there any comments, concerns, questions, additions, deletions? All good? Okay, perfect. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes? Anyone? Anyone? Thanks, Deborah. So motions. Okay. So motion to. So I've got Deborah, I've got motion to approve, and then I just need a seconder.
I can second it. Helena, if there's no other trustee there.
Okay. Thanks, Helena. Rick was jumping in the queue, so I've got Deborah and Rick, but thank you. Okay, item number 4, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations this evening? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, business arising. So we've got item number 2 is the ministry memo and special education funding model and categories, and that was sent out with the meeting package on Friday. Did everybody receive that? Okay, perfect. Great. Was there any questions? Anything on that item? No, okay. Item number 6 is the Spec Ed Board Policy Review. We don't have any policies, tonight for review from Seac. We're moving right along. So item number 7, and this is an undertaking that we do once a year to try to set the tone for the next year ahead of us, is take a look at our goal setting. So I'm happy to open up the floor. What I can do is, here's a couple of items that we have that had come up in our last sort of goal setting exercise, and we still have a few of those items on there that we have left to get to. So I wanted to just put those out there, and then let's talk about anything that Seac is looking by the way of presentations. Is there some goals you want to put around engagement this year? I mean, last year we had some great conversations and we had a Twitter account come out a bit and some things like that. So I'll just go over these items that we have. So what we still have left as far as some priorities is we do have this summary of student exceptionality. So the ONSIS information, that'll be coming either in February or March. We always have our budget priorities discussion. That should be happening hopefully in February this year. We start our spec ed plan review discussion, and I know that there's some items around there for some of the members to discuss. We have a psychological assessment wait time update coming in March. The accessibility plan will be on the agenda in May, as well as the continuation of the spec ed plan review. So those are what we have right now. We did get through a number of items that had come up at our last goal setting. Some of the presentations we saw on transitions and some of those other pieces, which is great, but everything is open. So I will open this up to everybody. Jessica, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? So nice to
Good,
see faces.
I'm just thinking back, I think about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when there was a trustee motion to give to parent survey. I remember there being some association reps or members asking if there will be like a board-wide spec ed parent survey for all exceptionalities. Is that something that Seac members, like we as the liaison between the parents, lead to some sort of a community consultation process, like maybe perhaps a subcommittee? I know the research department do know how to carry out surveys. However, if we can sort of gather our input in a subcommittee format to come up with either questions or concerns that could be addressed or zoomed in through the parent surveys, is that something that will be considered a Seac goal?
I mean, you know what, Jessica, I think anything's open for a Seac goal. I don't think anything's off the table. I think if that's something that, we as a group felt there was some value in, which obviously there's always value in that parent consultation process. So I think if, we felt it was value, if the group thought that this is something that we'd like to see come through as a Seac initiative, I think everything's on the table.
Because, I mean, according to the ONSIS data, not all students are identified exceptional. So even if we can focus on all IEP parents per se, that way we can capture even more diverse concerns and needs in the board.
Okay, so I'm just making a note.
Thank you.
So no problem. So that could certainly be something that we could, I don't know if, Stephanie, if you want to speak to that, but I mean, I know the research department would certainly be on side with that, depending on what it was that I think we were trying to, what would be our end game? What would be the information that we would be trying to sort of gather through a survey like that? What's the information that we would be looking to collect? And then what we would want to do with it, I think would be a big part of the conversation.
Hi, Brenda, and hi, everyone. Just finished, fix my camera. I'm just thinking about that, and I think that the 2 points that you raised around what is the data that we want to collect and what do we want to do with the information, I think those are really valid questions. And maybe Pat's making a comment as well, so maybe he's got some other information. I think it's something we can talk to the research department about, but I guess it's always goes back to, what's the purpose and the intent, and not just surveying for the sake of surveying, and maybe we need to tease that out in an additional conversation. For sure. And that's sort of where I think it's a great idea to engage with our families and get feedback from them if it's specific. I know that we did a survey to families after the summer school program,
that we had put forward, right, to get feedback from that, because we hadn't done it before. It was new for that community. And so that was great because we were able to sort of gauge the value, the impact, and then that sort of sets the stage for whether or not that's something that we would want to move forward with on a consistent basis from a board perspective. So that's where my head is kind of going. And I don't know, Jessica, if you're thinking the same thing, but that's where my head's kind of going as far as, looking at a survey.
Yes, exactly. To see what is working well and what else we could do.
Okay.
And Pat's included his comment there. His comment,
Yes.
Brenda, is that it might fit it into the feedback to inform our strategic plan, which is great.
Yeah. So I think definitely teasing that out a little bit more. There's some hands up here. Paul, was it about this idea, or is it a different idea for goal setting? Either way is fine.
It's a different idea. So.
Okay, go ahead, shoot it. We can always come back to this if somebody wants to comment on the other idea. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so I guess I missed the last meeting of the SMART setting up the goals because for personal reasons. But I'd like to see if we could set up a goal or two that we have sort of control of or our responsibility. And one of the things I'd like to see, or suggest, not like to see, or suggest, is that we set up some sort of self-assessment process, both on the meetings and on our effectiveness, and to set up a process that we're at the end of every meeting or at the end of every few meetings that we do a self-assessment just to see what's working, what's not working. And, one of the things that being involved in goal setting quite a bit over the time is I'd like to make them measurable, attainable, specific, and a time on it. So that I'd like to see us set up some sort of goal, or suggesting that we set up some sort of goal where we set up a self-assessment process for the Seac committee, not for individuals, but for the Seac committee. The second thing is it'd be great to see if we could publish it before the year starts, is set up a calendar that actually outlines every month what our plan is. It can change, but at least to know that, okay, February we're going to be talking about budget, March we're going to be talking about that. Things can be added, but have something along that lines where two things that we can start understanding a bit better what's coming up and make sure we're prepared. So I had a few others, but I think if we could do those two, or think about those two, I think it would also help.
So good news on both of those. As we're talking, I'm like, so we haven't done it. We haven't done it with this group, I don't think, but we did have a time where we would do something similar to the self-assessment I think you're speaking of, Paul, where we would do, a stop, start, continue. And we would put that out at at some point, either at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, and each of the members would fill that out. So it's a little bit of a self-assessment. Then as a group, we would discuss it and, sort of come to a consensus of the things that we liked that we were doing as a group, the things that we don't need to be doing anymore, and the things that we want to start doing. So I know that that's something we've done in the past, and we have all of those forms. I've got them, somewhere on a file folder. So we could certainly, I think that's a great idea. I think it's always important to gauge the other members around the table and, get sort of more of a formalized feedback from them. So I think that's a great idea. And it's something that we have done, maybe not exactly to what you're thinking, but I'd be happy to bring that forward maybe for the first meeting of the year, and we could take some time to do that and see if that was what you were thinking, and then we could take the data and do with it what we will. So that was one thing. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I was just, I understand. I was here when we did it once or twice before.
Okay.
But I'd like to set up, put a commitment that we actually set up a process and make it part of our operating plan, that we do this and then measure how well. The other thing I'd like to be able to do is measure at the end of each year how we did against our goals. Okay. Again, it's not a question of a report card as such, but just, hey, these were our goals. Which ones did we succeed, and which ones didn't we succeed, and why didn't we succeed?
Sure. Okay. So, again, from the goal, I'm sure we could make up a metrics to measure that goal attainment piece. if there was interest to do the self-assessment process again, I'd be happy to bring that forward. Or we, somebody could bring that forward for the first meeting in January. And then as far as the calendar, we have that. I'd be happy to share that. So we do have a calendar. It's sort of a bit of a skeleton, and it's used sort of to prep when we're setting the agenda for the meetings, just to get an idea for timing. But happy to share that, what we already have on there. So like you said, so you can see, this is when we start the spec ed plan review. This is when we have the budget typically happening. And then any other items that we have slotted in there currently. And absolutely, we can amend, we can change, we can move around. So we can certainly share that. That's not a problem at all. Okay, is there any follow-up there? Or I'm going to go to the next person. I just want to make sure, Paul, that I've answered your questions and made your notes.
No, I understand, and I think that's great. I don't know if we have operating procedures for the committee or not, but I'd just like to have that written down and for us to review that every once in a while. Because again, I know the goals were set, but the meetings that I attended after coming back, I didn't remember ever talking about them again. And so I'd just like to see there's some way almost every meeting we have that goal thing comes up, and then maybe spend 5 minutes against the status of how we're doing against different goals.
Seac goals. Okay, so thinking almost to add it as an agenda item, Seac goals for every meeting, and just have a temperature check of where we're at. Is that what you're thinking? Okay. Yes. And in the meantime, did you want me to share that calendar that we have with everybody? Because I'm happy to do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Maria, you have your hand up?
I do. I'm going to try and turn on my camera, but sometimes it flickers a lot, so I might have to turn it off.
No.
So I originally had my hand up for Jessica's comments, but a lot of things that Paul said resonated with me. See, our camera's flickering, so I don't know.
That's good. It's 2020, Maria. I mean,
well,
everything flickers.
Yeah, right. I thought you were going to say like it's time for an updated computer, which I have asked Santa for, but okay, so sorry. So I had my hand up to speak to Jessica's suggestion, but a lot of what Paul said really resonated with me and was in line with some of what I was thinking as well. So I'm going to touch on that first, and then maybe go back to Jessica's unless there's other people that want to comment on either. But yeah, I agree, and I think in the past a lot of our goals and a lot of what you've listed, Brenda, as carrying over, they're agenda items, and some of them are standing items,
yeah.
And some of them are presentations that we've asked for, which is all great. But is that our goal, is to just receive information? And to Paul's point, it would be nice to have some more like measure goals of things that we would like to achieve, for example. So I agree with that. And I was also going to suggest like a review of our effectiveness of our meetings. I was thinking about the stop, start, and continue because I've been here for that in the past. I don't know if we've done it as this group. But I also wanted to share.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't either, but I'm not, it all becomes a bit of a blur.
Sure. Okay.
But if I could make kind of a suggestion, I'm not sure if everyone's aware or remembers, last year PAC on Seac did a survey of Seac members. And my understanding is that the results of that report are coming out this month or early January. I was actually part of the group that worked on that survey. So, and some, I think Learning Disabilities is suggesting to their members, we don't have a member now, but they're suggesting to their members that Seac's put that on their agenda in the month of January to review the results of the survey. So that could be a good starting point, kind of review what the best practices are that PAC on Seac recommends, how things are looking across the province, how do we compare, and then maybe from there do a stop, start, and continue exercise and decide kind of what, how we want to measure our effectiveness going forward or whatever, what changes we might want to make, what things are working great. And they also have some recommendations of what be on a calendar for Seacs. And some of the things we do, and some of the things we don't do. So maybe we want to look at some of those things and see if we want to start, adding those to our calendar for the year. We can decide as a group once that report kind of comes out.
So
And
just
I think there was
making
something
notes,
else.
Marie, I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
Can I just recap for 1 second?
Sure.
So, so we're looking for January to take a look to see if we can have that Pack on Seac survey shared with some of the information, and sorry, I'm just writing this down, and then take a look at sort of using that, having that sort of move into our stop, start, continue.
Yeah.
And then taking a look at what other Seacs have on their agenda items, whether it be monthly or annually, and see if there's a fit.
Yeah, I guess we're not so much looking at other Seacs. Well, I guess we can see what comes out in the survey is what I was thinking, in terms of what other Seacs are doing well, not so well. Okay. But also Pack on Seac in their resources, they have recommendations of what should be on a calendar. Okay. So whether or not other Seacs are doing them or not, I guess is irrelevant. We can look at those recommendations and see if there are things that we want to do if we're not doing them already. Okay. And put them on our calendar. But I thought by reviewing the Pack on Seac survey results before we do our stop, start, continue, because it might give people some ideas. Oh, we don't do that. That would be a good thing to do. That might not occur to someone until they see it in that report. And also I think in the past, my recollection of the stop, start, continue is we would fill it all in anonymously, which I think is important. Mm-hmm. And then we would submit it. Yes. And it sort of would come back as, okay, we've reviewed and this is kind of what we've kind of decided. But I would like to ask if all of Seac can see kind of all the feedback and decide as a group which things we want to stop, start, and continue. I think we can still maintain confidentiality. I was gonna say, yeah. As long as we can maintain confidentiality, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of my my sort of additional feedback to Paul's comments. I think I agreed with everything that he said there, and that's just a little bit more on that. I did have some comments on just what Jessica was suggesting, so I don't know if there's anyone that wants to say more about this effectiveness piece. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so go ahead. I don't have anybody in the chat, Maria. So if you want to continue the conversation around the piece that Jessica brought up, I can make notes on that, and then if that stirs some other conversation, then go ahead. Sounds good. Okay. So yeah, I was thinking about. I hadn't thought about doing a survey, but I am, as I think brought up a couple of times already as well. Really big on this community consultation piece. And another part, I think it was maybe Jessica that said not everybody has an identification that has an IEP. And I think the other thing that's really important to remember is not all parents are members of the associations that are sitting around the table. And of course, we have a big deficit now with not having LD there. Hopefully we get someone in there, but that's a deficit. But even families whose children have an exceptionality that's represented at the table, they might not be a part of that association. They might not even know that association exists. I know for sure that's true for ABC Ontario. I don't know for others, but I'm assuming that would be the case. So how are we representing all of those parents that don't have a connection back to an association? So a survey is a good way to do it. I agree. We want to be clear on what we're going to do with the information, what we're trying to gather. But I think at a high level, it would be like what's working well and what needs improvement. And I think that can help inform, CX work and staff's work in terms of really what the goals should be, what we're talking about right now. I know Director Daly's talking about fitting it into the feedback to inform the strategic plan. And I would like to see it. It could be part of the strategic plan process, but I'd like to see it as a separate thing because parents might not fill out the surveys or whatever for the strategic plan, but if they see there's something specific to spec ed, they may have an interest in that. It's possible. So I think if it's, and I don't know if that's what he meant, but if he meant to kind of incorporate it in the strategic plan, it might get lost in there. So I'd like to kind of see it as something separate. That would be my feedback and recommendation on that. And then I think
sorry, Greg, do you mind if I jump in for 1 sec?
Yeah.
Or I wonder, so I don't disagree in that piece. I do think, I think that's an excellent fit to have it in that strategic plan, but I wonder again, if, what that mechanism would be to make sure that it doesn't get lost, because I think that it could get lost. And so I think that's part of the consideration. Is it a separate survey, recognizing people get survey burnout, or do we, if it becomes part of a larger piece, do we need then to come up with a way as Seac to make sure that we are promoting that so that it doesn't get lost? So that could be something else, so sort of for us, I think for that subcommittee, if that's where we want to go with a goal, I think that could be a piece for us to look at. Is it its own, or if it is embedded, what can we do? How can we work with corporate communications? How can we work with the team to make sure that it doesn't get lost and we're targeting the right people so that they fill it out and we get that information back?
Yeah, all valid questions. I don't know what the best way is, but I agree with all that. And I don't, I guess one thing I was picturing, I don't know if it's the best solution. And I guess, again, our survey people probably have some expertise to lend to this, but does it go out at the same time as the strategic plan survey, but a separate, parents get 2 links, right? Fill out this for your spec ed feedback, fill out this for everything else. I don't know. I'm just, just throwing it out there.
Okay.
And from there, I'm just going to throw on one more thing, and then I'll be quiet for a little while, is community engagement. And I know that's something that we've been working on since you and I both joined, Brenda.
Yeah.
And I know there was lots of great work done last year. The Twitter account's great. I was thinking about those sound bites that we did, and I actually thought about them a while ago too, because I know we talked about, nobody does newsletters anymore, but they're still posted on the website, which is great because some of them are very, I don't know what the word is, the opposite of time sensitive. Like they're valid.
They test it.
Good information.
They stand the test of time.
Exactly. I was trying to find a shorter word, but
that's all I could come up with.
But it dawned on me today, and I was thinking about, well, why don't we promote the sound bites with the Twitter account, and the school board can retweet and favorite, and some of our senior staff, like the director that have lots of followers, our superintendent, they can like and retweet, and that reaches a lot of people. And I remembered there was one, I haven't gone back to look at it because I don't know if there's anything that would be out of place with us being in the COVID situation, but I think there was one about the holidays, and
I wrote that one.
I know, I was thinking that, because that is really a critical time for a lot of our students. And I think there was a lot of great tips in there. So that could be, we could start by kind of retweeting and sharing that one. Again, I'm I don't know if it talks about and being in large groups, maybe it might need some tweaking. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But again, that's kind of an issue that comes up every year, right? And I'm sure we've got lots of parents that haven't even seen that one. It was a while since we did it. So that would be, I think, continuing community engagement. I think that's something that should always be a goal. And we could always be looking at more ways, but I think that we can marry 2 of our previous initiatives, use our social media to share our sound bites. We don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. We can use what we have. So that, I think community engagement is a good goal, and that's just one kind of suggestion, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, because another thought too on that is that perhaps that is another, I don't know if there are people on here who enjoy writing or who, have a penchant for that, but that's probably a great subcommittee. I think it would be probably relevant to at least go through them, and let's make sure that the information is still relevant, because I agree with you. I think there's things, we talk about transitions, IEPs, we talk about a lot of that kind of stuff, which should stand the test of time, but perhaps having a subcommittee go through them, make sure that just vet them, make sure they are relevant, update where necessary before we send them out again. And then take a look and see if we have any gaps. So has there been any information, maybe like, I don't think we have a lot of them on technology and some other things that perhaps we want to write. And maybe once we can identify that, there might be some writers amongst us who are happy to contribute to those sound bites. And then, yeah, I think we push them out through the channels that we have.
Well, and yeah, and we have a lot of new people that weren't here when we wrote them originally. So I'm sure, you know, there might be some ideas that we just never thought of, or areas that other people have expertise in, that they could lend to writing up some new ones. But certainly, I think, you know, we start off with what we have.
Yeah.
And I think at one time we tried to suggest that each person would write a different one because it was the three of us writing.
Yeah, that didn't go so.
But I don't know how many people submitted anything. So anyway, we're all volunteers. So
yeah, 100%.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a good idea. So I'll write that note, because that's an, you know, to me, that's an easy win for us. We have them, they're there. Let's pull them out. Let's take a look at them. Let's dust them off and repurpose them. So I made that note. So Dan, I know your hand is up, but I'm wondering, Stephanie, did your hand go up perhaps in response to something we were just discussing?
Yeah, it did, Brenda. I was just going to say, I do recall the sound bites, and they went a little to the wayside when we moved away from newsletters, but it's still something I think that we could bring back, and many schools are using the weekly memo. And we could always offer those sound bites to our school administrators to include in the weekly memos, as well as Twitter. But you may have some families that don't access Twitter who do get those weekly memos. So that's a big audience.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. Yep, that's a good idea. So I think we just need to dust those off and take a look at them again. So I'll write that on the to-do list. Dan, you had your hand up?
Yeah. So basically, just wanted to, I guess, reinforce some of the points that were raised earlier with the, I guess, online survey for Spec Ed. I think that has to happen in one form or the other. Just especially now with the COVID, I guess, isolation and special changes that are happening for everybody with the school and vocation and sharing the information. I think that the survey is going to have a way more impact than in the normal circumstances. So we should make sure that that's happening. The other thing, I guess, on the sound bites, for sure, we need to make sure that we update them, I guess, from every association. But the other thing related to the association, I think we should be sharing some of the experiences in the way different associations are coping with the current situation. So a lot of them have online activities right now because you cannot have them in person. There's a lot of online training, online games, online, I guess, parties and so on. So we just, I think it might be useful to share what the experience is from the particular association in terms of how we manage to cope with, I guess, with the online activities, and also we can share some of the technology aspects on what things are working best, what do we notice that is more favored with, I guess, with the kids and the parents in the association and so on. So I know we had that item sometime on the agenda to share some of the association experiences, but maybe just to make it, I guess, focused on the technology and the online activity, that would be useful just to share the experience.
I think that's a great idea, Dan. And I would say, I think that's a perfect use, if you wanted to if there was something that had come out from the associations that you could include an association report, I think that'd be a great idea. You know, I know that with, you know, Easter Seals, an example, I don't think Chris is on the call, and I know that I'm not the Easter Seals rep anymore, but I do know that, you know, Easter Seals is doing a 2-week virtual camp to keep kids connected over the Christmas break. So I think all of those things are really important. How technology is being used, how kids are coping from home, some of the tips and tricks that parents can use when they, you know, in these situations with their kids. We know that a lot of our students are, you know, having a hard time, and especially some students within this population. So I think that's a great idea. I don't know. My thought is the easiest way to share that is probably via an association report. If the associations want to put that, and then you could present that at the next meeting. I think it's a great idea.
That will absolutely work. Yep.
Yeah, good idea, Dan. And I think you need to write a technology soundbite. So I'm just putting you on the list for that.
All right.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Dan, that you wanted to add?
That will be. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Perfect. Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself, but I'd like to see if we have one or two goals that we actually as Seac feel that we own or that we control. For example, the communication one is a perfect one. And if we set up a goal that says that we want to set up a subcommittee on communication by, well, let's say by February of 2021, and ask them to provide us with a plan report by the winter of 2001. Again, I like goals that I know what's expected and when it's expected, and you know, rather than just have it as a general discussion, actually have something that we can act upon and move upon. You know, I'd really like to be able to know what my value added or any value added of the committee or the committee members are towards you know, our overall goal. So again,
yeah. You know, sorry, Paul. Sorry, sorry.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I just wanted to be specific with dates and achievable, and for us to act upon it rather than just putting it there and looking at it every month.
For sure. So the only thing that I would say, and I think that, you know, I think everybody always has the best of intentions, and I think everybody is here for the right reasons. And, you know, the only thing that I'll ever comment on is that if we're going to set goals and they're agreed upon as a group, then we have to all contribute to a certain extent to help meet those goals. So my fear is that we as a group say, yeah, let's for sure have a communication subcommittee. We're going to do this many of this, or you know, whatever that is, and then I don't have anyone putting up their hand. Recognizing that we're all busy, that this is volunteer, that they always say, if you want something done, ask a busy person. But I just want to be cognizant of that, you know, if we're going to put goals forward and everybody puts their hand up and says, yes, that's an excellent goal for Seac, and it is a goal that requires you know, member participation to attain that goal, that we have some consistent participation and commitment from people to help us, because a lot of times everybody has the best of intentions and for a variety of reasons are just not able to see it through, and then it falls to one or two people to scramble to make that happen. So that's the only thing that I would say is it's not a deterrent by any means, but when we're having these conversations about setting these goals and possibly setting up subcommittees or whatever that might be, is just recognizing that we do need people to help out if that's a component of the goal, if it is being driven by, you know, the members.
And that's where our self-assessment tool will be handy for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Was there any other hands up? So I had another question along these lines of goal setting. Okay, I just didn't want to jump in front of anybody. So I did want to ask though, oh, sorry, Marie, I started talking. Is that okay?
No, it's okay. You go ahead,
Okay.
because I wanted to wait until the rest was kind of done and then.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So the only thing that I did want to say, and recognizing that, I know that a lot of the times it seems like we're just receiving information, and I think our conversation here, and I think our goal is always to take the information and hopefully do something with it, whether it's, better knowledge for us as a group, sharing that with our associations, communicating that to parents. But I, for one, do like when we receive information from staff on programs, initiatives, things like that. So I do find those really valuable. And I think aside from seeing some of the things that are happening, it allows us to have some discussion, ask some questions, and then sometimes we see some further action come out of those. And so along those lines, I would be curious to see if there was any requests for presentations that people may have. We just had our transition one. I think that could be a whole meeting. So is there repeat presentations that we'd like to see? Is there new information that we're looking to have presented? Something else, I think. So while that may not be, I still think that's a goal. I still think it's a continuous supply of information so that we make sure that we're getting what we need. So I still would encourage people, if they have ideas around presentations you'd like to see, that also helps plan out the calendar for the year as well. That was all I had to say on that. So Maria, yeah, go ahead with your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I guess now I have a couple of other things just to comment on based on some of what you've said as well. So yeah, it's not that, like, for me, I mean, yes, receiving information is good. It's definitely valuable. I guess it would just be nice to do more than that. And, one thing I was thinking in terms of the presentations, I don't myself have any right now that I can think of that I would looking to see, but when we do have presentations, maybe survey Seac members to see, what is some of the information they'd like to see in the presentations to kind of make sure that they're sort of targeted to what we're looking for, and maybe have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to say, are there any gaps that you guys see that you'd like to see addressed? Like, to recognize that that's a possibility. I think that makes them just that much more rich. To your point about, setting target dates and being a little too, I guess formal in terms of setting goals and target dates and things like that, and maybe not having enough people step up. I hear you, and I hear both sides. I really see both sides of this.
Yeah.
And but I think that if you don't set a bit of structure and a bit of target dates, it's easy to never get to things, right?
I agree.
And this was sort of my point last meeting with the business arising. If there isn't a target date, then how do we ever know where, we need a map kind of thing. So I think maybe the answer is to have some targets and to have a little bit of structure, but to not get to, I don't think anyone's going to get yelled at or kicked off the committee if they don't meet the target date, what we're about. And we can move the target dates. Yeah, we haven't gotten to that, just haven't had time. Let's, revisit the target date. And that's, I guess, speaks to Paul's comments about the self-assessment piece. And I don't think we need to be too hard on ourselves, because I think we are here, for the right reasons and all of that, and we're all volunteers and so on. But I think it's helpful to have a little bit of what are we trying to achieve here, and when are we trying to achieve it by? So that, I guess that would kind of be my comment on that. And I guess the last thing, to your point as well about the transition planning and so on, that's another goal that I'd like to see, and I do have an association report coming up about that, is maybe how, and so I don't know where it fits better here or fits better later, but just to talk about, maybe there's some more work we can do in that area. So that I'd like to see that as kind of one of our goals. And there are some goals in our business arising, like the letter to the ministry. I think that's a goal. We've set a date.
Agreed.
So that's another one. So I think we've got a good list.
I think we have a good list. And
not to cut off anybody that has anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm making notes. I'm sure Andrea's notes will be far more thorough than mine. But I think what we could do is certainly put together, for January's meeting, is a summary of these goals, And, you know, they're sort of fitting into, they really are all fitting together. And I think that they'll come out pretty clear as far as what they are. So what we could do is provide in January, you know, what those goals are. Let's agree on them as a group, and then let's spend some time to assign some timelines, assign some action items to those. And I think that will go well with, you know, if we're going to have this pack on Seac and all that kind of stuff. So I think if I'm looking at, you know, if I'm looking at January, it could be a perfect time for us to take this conversation and then recap it and actually attach some stuff to it. Let me just admit Andrea here. So yeah, so I think that's probably the next best step.
If I can just make one more comment, I'm just thinking, if we don't have a long list of presentations that are being requested, maybe we have time in our meetings to have little working discussions on some of these things as well, right? So
for sure,
that might work.
We can break out into groups for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's something that we can do. Sorry, Maria, I was going to say that's something that we can do with technology. When it works, it can be okay. But we can set some, like if we're remote still, we can set aside some sort of breakout rooms. And so we could come together as a group, break out, do some work, and then come back together into the main meeting. So I think that's definitely a possibility for sure.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to say is if we, depending on, you know, the nature of that part doesn't have to be recorded and like the working group discussions don't have to be recorded and posted. Yeah. But when we come back as a group, I think that would be, because that's like if we had a public meeting, we've done that in public where we've broken up into small groups, and if someone's in the room, they're just sitting at the back, they're not roaming around listening to the different groups.
Yeah, and then
when we come back to the table.
Exactly, and hit the recording again when we present the ideas from the groups. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So, okay, so I'll work with Andrea on putting these together, and then you can, you know, let me know if I've missed or if the goals are complete as to what we've discussed. Is there anybody else before we move on? And listen, if it doesn't come to you right now, that's okay. If you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning like I do, and you think about a goal, go ahead and send that, because you know, it's never too late. You could come forward with a goal in a few months from now, if it's something that's maybe come out of something else. So I don't want people to think this is their only chance, but I do think it's great to have a starting point and to have some goals to work towards to sort of frame the next number of months as we come together as a group. Okay, I just need to pause for 1 second. I just need a power cord before I run out of power. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So are we good to move on to item 7.2? Show of hands, all good. Yep, okay, perfect. Okay, great. And thanks. I think that was a great conversation. I think those are some wonderful ideas. And I think what I like about the ideas too is that they really do go across the spectrum of all of our associations. And so I think that's really important, is that, you know, they really sort of run the gamut. Okay, 7.2. So as we had mentioned to Seac members is, sorry, Helen, I see you're typing. I don't want to start something unless, I'm going to make sure that okay. So we have received a nomination from Autism Ontario for Deborah Barden to represent their association on Seac as their main committee member. So I'll read that out to you. Oh, yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining us, Helena. So I'll just bear with me right now as I grab it. So unfortunately, Marika has had to step off of Seac, and we're sad to see her go, but we wish her all the best. And so this is a nomination from Autism Ontario to have Deborah step into that main role. So I'll just read the letter. It says, "To whom it may concern, I send this letter of intent to nominate Deborah Barden to represent the local association, Autism Ontario, as the main representative on the Special Education Advisory Council, Seac, with the Halton Catholic District School Board, HCDSB. Deborah is a Canadian citizen of the age of 18 years or older, a resident within the jurisdiction of the Halton Catholic District School Board, and a registered Catholic school supporter." And then it has Deborah's contact information. And then kind regards, Sandeline Azem. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Azem, Regional Program and Volunteer Coordinator. So that is the nomination that's come forward, and that will go to the board meeting of, let me just see, the board meeting on Tuesday, January the 5th for trustee approval. So we're glad to, I say welcome, Deborah, but you're already here, but we're really happy to have you move forward into that main representative position, and look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it too. I know it's been a little confusing with Autism Ontario, so now I hope to just take the lead. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, great. Perfect. Yeah, we're excited. Rhonda, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. My house is really loud tonight, which is why I haven't been able to speak at all. It's like super loud, so I just yelled at everyone. Now, this is going back, just a comment about our goal setting. In the past, association reps used to give a nice, once in a while, a presentation on their association. And I think it would be nice, because we have newer members, if we had a couple of those once in a while. Anybody willing to talk about, what your association is about and what your goals are as a rep? That would be, I think, a good goal as well.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Perfect.
Brenda.
Thank you. Yeah, let me make that note. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, and I think we used to do that sort of almost. I feel like we used to have conversations almost sort of at the beginning of the year when we talked about who we were, what we were representing, and then do it like that. But I think it's a good chance to revisit. Okay. So we are on to agenda item 8. So 8.1 is the superintendent's report. So Superintendent Ballo.
Yes, thank you. So the report is fairly brief since we just met 2 weeks ago, but I do have a few items. First of all, I'd like to start by welcoming Jane Atchison, and Jane's on the call this evening. She is our new acting chief social worker, and she's taken over for Patricia Codner, who's been seconded to School Mental Health Ontario. Maybe I'll ask Jane if she'd like to introduce herself to the group.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight. As Stephanie said, my name is Jane Atchison. I've been with the board since 2009 in the position of social worker. My latest position was lead elementary social worker in the North. And I'm very pleased to be stepping into Patricia's position while she's seconded to the ministry. So yeah, thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you very much, Jane, and thanks for joining us tonight. Secondly, we want to provide an update on the virtual speech and language services that have been provided, and we've got Denise Colley who's going to give a brief summary this evening for us.
Hi, everybody. So this is some information that we gathered back in June when we did a survey of parents who had received virtual speech and language services during the school shutdown, because we wanted some feedback to inform our planning moving into September. And it seems like so long ago now, but we were still learning so much, and much of it has gone into inform the work that we've done into this school year. So just, as background, speech and language services were online within 3 weeks of school closures. We were providing coaching sessions to parents, direct sessions with students, as well as online coaching sessions to teachers. And at the end of June, we did do a survey of parents whose children were active on SLP caseload to get their feedback. And virtual visits during that time of school closure included Teams visits, email, phone calls, and sometimes providing some goal-specific resources, either online or paper resources that were delivered to homes. So we surveyed about 500 parents, and we got a response from 184, which was about 37%. The high level results, if you just scroll down a little bit, was that 61% of respondents were able to participate in the virtual sessions. Not all parents were able to. 77% of the respondents felt that they could make immediate use of the strategies that they learned during the sessions. 76% felt they had a better understanding of their child's communication skill as a result of attending the online sessions, and 80% reported that their children actively participated in the session. So overall, we were quite encouraged by the numbers, and we were even more so by some of the comments. So parents indicated things like, by using the communication book, it was easy for him and for us as a parent to understand whatever he wants or requests. And the communication book is a type of augmentative communication that's low tech that many of our students use between starting to use a picture exchange system and starting to use technology. Another parent indicated that I learned to implement prompting for more complex and conversational speech and other aspects of daily routines or when playing various games. Another parent said the SLP helped me to recognize to increase communication opportunities with at-home activities during outdoor playtime and day-to-day routines. Another parent indicated that we still need to work on pronouns as he mixes up he, she, they, his, her. He has really improved. We will continue to work on this over the summer. Another said, I would prefer to have this session in person, but I understand with COVID-19 situation, virtual will be the best way. My son loves and participated in the sessions. However, his interest lasts less than when he is one-to-one in person. And we did hear that, from several parents. So that certainly was a theme, that not all children were able to engage in the sessions in the same way they would engage in person. Another parent indicated that they had learned some specific technology to use as part of everyday speech, such as follow the group plan and listen with your whole body. And those are things that we use as part of our social thinking program, which supports the learning of social cognition skills as a foundational skill for social skills. And we learned prompting and questioning to pull out more information. Another parent said we had to request an end to the sessions after attending two, that it was just creating too much anxiety for her son. And then another parent so this would have been a parent that indicated that they weren't participating in that the distance learning requirements were overwhelming enough without adding speech therapy into the equation. So there were certainly, a handful of parents who just felt that, and rightly so. If we remember back to how the world was in April and May, and everything was so new, and we were all trying to learn to cope with the new restrictions and the new protocols in our world, that speech therapy wasn't always at the top of people's priority list for their energy. When we look at what some of the learning and the planning that we're doing based on this information, first and foremost, not all families and students can benefit from virtual support. So moving into this year, we did plan very early on for a clinic model for virtual learners, so that if a child was learning from home, but did need some speech and language support, that there would be either an opportunity for them to come into their home school for a clinic appointment with their SLP, or that the SLP could meet them at an alternative site where there is less traffic. And we identified 3 of those sites in our board, one in Burlington, one in Oakville, and one in Milton. And also that we would continue to provide a variety of support options. So either interactive video, phone calls, computer-based activities, or tangible activities. And there are some parents that do prefer just an old-fashioned phone conversation of, tell us what's going on, and we'll try and, help you troubleshoot and give you some tips over the phone. Secondly, we found that not all families had access to technology to support the interactive sessions. And again, thinking back to April, I would say not one person on my staff had used Teams prior to having to go online and do these sessions. So it was definitely a work in progress of learning how to share screens, learning to make sure that not only could we share a screen with a student, but that they could also take control of the screen, which is a critical feature when you're learning to use, when you're working on receptive or understanding of language. And you can't take control of a screen if you're joining from a phone or a tablet or from a browser. So if you're on a Chromebook, you're not able to always take control of the screen. So we had to really ensure that we were matching the technology available with the type of support in the session, how we were structuring it, and also the expectations of the parent of what we were able to achieve with limitations of different technology. We found it really interesting that we'd be troubleshooting and we'd be saying to a parent, but you're on a computer, and they'd go, yeah, I'm on a computer. And then we'd find out 2 sessions later, the computer was an iPad, and we just weren't being really specific in what we were talking about in terms of what a computer meant. Parents certainly reported an increased understanding of their child's communication goals and strategies to support development, and they were interested in learning this. And it was, you know, having some space and having some opportunities to watch a clinician use the strategies with their child and see the success, I think really helped parents to come on board and to try some things themselves. We found that parents were able to implement the use of AAC systems at home when given specific structured support. During the school shutdown, we did do some porch drop-offs of AAC systems that students were using for the first time with their parents at home with some of our support, and they did amazingly well. Students that we really weren't sure how it was going to go were just, you know, using the device. Parents were creating opportunities and seeing lots of success. So we are going to continue to provide opportunities and resources for parents in terms of learning and coaching how to use AAC systems. And we're developing a website of resources with a video modeling for parents so that they can also see demonstrations at times that are convenient for them. We also found that parents may not understand our model of support or the role of school-based rehab services. So we still got some comments of, you know, I don't know why my child didn't get articulation therapy. So there's still a bit of a mismatch between understanding of the school SLP role. And again, we're developing some plain language explanations of our support, of our tiered model of intervention, and also the role of the school-based rehab services SLP and how that is very distinct from the services that we're providing. So just to recap, you know, during that time between mid-April to mid-June, we did a total of about 700 online sessions with students, about 400 parent coaching sessions, and about 600 sessions with teachers and support staff around supporting speech and language virtually. And we're excited that we're able to continue to do some virtual sessions with students who are part of our virtual school. And also, as we're limited right now to being in one school per day, we're also able to connect with other students virtually in other schools to continue to provide, you know, a high level of support and also really meaningful intervention. Are there any questions? Deborah.
Hi there.
Hi.
Great presentation. Thank you. That was that was really informative, actually. And congratulations on getting all of that together so quickly with the virtual and no one having used Teams before. Wow. I had 2 kids at home doing this, so I know how challenging that was. I just do have a question. You said that the AAC systems were sent home or were dropped off at some people's houses. I'm just curious which AAC systems were being used.
So great question. So we, when there were iPads, so when parents had opportunities to pick up SIA equipment from schools, they were able to pick up iPads that might have been used as SIA equipment. We have mostly iPads prescribed through SIA. I'm just trying to think if we have any. We may have 1 or 2 iPods that are prescribed as communication devices, but it's mostly iPads with either Proloquo or LAMP.
Right.
But we also did deliver and created some communication books that were dropped off, and certainly PECS binders went home as well if parents requested them.
That's great. That's wonderful. I did want to say as well that you mentioned that continuing on with providing parent information and kind of having that parent involvement component. It actually sounds like maybe the COVID situation could have kind of done some good, like in my opinion, from for speech and language support. It's crucial that parents are involved. Absolutely crucial that everyone's on the same page. Most, if not all, children with autism are receiving speech and language support. So, if the parents and what's going on at home is different from what's going on at school, that's going to slow down the child's progress. So I think it would be really, really great to see that continuing, that type of parent involvement, parent education first and foremost, to be able to give that information to the parents to implement at home, just like you were saying, whether it be even just in an email, anything. That would be really great to keep that going. I know parents in the autism community would find that extremely helpful, because when it comes to speech and language, sometimes their child, whether they receive it at school or elsewhere, the parents aren't there and seeing what's happening. So to have kind of that guideline and involvement would ongoing, and not just during COVID would be great.
Right. Absolutely. And so we are continuing to offer parent coaching around AAC or using language strategies. We're offering those to parents. We don't find the uptake is quite as big as it was during COVID. But we certainly are offering it, and we're also trying to find other ways to get some of that information to parents. And we're working with strategic communications to develop an SLP website that would have links to videos, again, so parents can access video modeling, but also links to other strategies and resources and information that parents can sort of navigate on their own time, and then reach back to us if they have questions and clarification as well. So we've certainly learned you can't have a one size fits all. Reaching out. I think the other thing we really learned was that because the SLPs were learning to use the technology, and we were humbled by it for sure, that it really leveled the playing field, right? And nobody was an expert during COVID. And so parents and clinicians were learning together. And I think that seeing my staff is vulnerable and unsure helped parents to be okay with being vulnerable and unsure as well. And people kind of found their way together.
Great.
Are there any other questions?
Thanks, Denise. Thanks for
Thanks so
providing
much,
that
Denise.
information.
Thank you.
And I really like the example that Denise used, and I'm happy that she shared her scenario in her particular field, because I really feel like it does speak to many students, staff, and parents who have had to adapt over the past months, and it really can't be underestimated. I do want to thank our staff for all of their efforts since the beginning of the school year. Everyone has worked really hard to support the daily challenges, and every day we come up against something new, and we have to think, how are we going to be able to provide that service to students? And the point that was made toward the end, the comment about reflecting on the changes that have come out of necessity and being reflective as a team as to what changes do we need to ensure that we continue with as we move forward in special education and across the board, because in a lot of ways we really have moved forward more quickly. And I think being able to do it collaboratively has really helped in a lot of different ways. So that's definitely a takeaway for myself, is to consider what are the changes that we've made and what are those important changes that we want to maintain as we move forward. And that's it with respect to the superintendent report.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. And thank you again, Denise. That was a fantastic presentation recap. Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie on her report? No? Okay. Thank you again to both of you. Trustee Guzzo, are you back on the call? No. Okay, I will send her a message just in the interest of time. What I'll do is, why don't, Maria, are you and Jessica prepared to present your association report?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I can just have Trustee Guzzo, we'll just switch spots.
Sure, no problem. I think it's going to be me doing most of the talking, but I'm going to keep it brief. So the topic is transition planning, as I mentioned earlier, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the report, which went out on Friday. And essentially, these are concerns that we raised during the Spec Ed plan review, and we touched on them again at the last meeting. So I don't want to belabor the particulars, but we just want to move this forward and ensure that these concerns are addressed. And we sort of realized, our perspective is specific to the gifted population because that's who we're here representing. So we definitely have some specific issues in that regard, but thinking that perhaps and probably other associations or other members have maybe different concerns as well that they would like to see addressed. So just in terms of moving forward, do we want to set up a subcommittee to work on this? Do we want to set aside some time at a future meeting? And if it's just ABC Ontario that has concerns, then we're happy to work offline with staff to get those addressed. So basically, that's just what we wanted to bring forward and see how the rest of Seac would like to see this addressed. And Jessica, I don't know if you had anything else to add. Again, I'm not, there's some specific recommendations we have in there that the idea wasn't to to have a discussion around those today or to try and address those, but how do we move forward? So that's really it.
No, Maria, I don't have anything to add, and we've shared our concerns at a couple of meetings, and we don't need to read out our report. We're really looking forward for other members' input to see if there's concerns with transition meetings to make it more consistent and equitable to all our gifted students from ABC's perspective, or all of our exceptional learners from other members or associations' perspectives. Like Maria had mentioned, we're proposing 3 options to go forward. We're really open to input from other members.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the report from ABC that they wanted to bring forward?
So, Brett, if I may, I don't know if you have anything that you want to suggest, but if it's not something that other members want to spend time on, we can just reach out, like I said, offline with staff and do it that way. So I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Okay. And I do think that there, that transition planning and that whole piece around transition obviously affects, all the associations. I'm thinking that perhaps maybe some of our members aren't just able to respond back to that next step right now, but I know that that's something that I'm interested in. Transition is a big piece. I think the value of it is so important, and there's a lot of things that are done really well, and I think that there's some opportunities for improvement. There's some gaps that have been identified to me from some parents, and I'd love to do a little bit more work on it. So maybe that becomes one of our subcommittees, or that becomes one of, I know that was a suggestion. So maybe we let people ruminate on it for a little bit. And I can add that I can mention that.
Is this arising, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We throw it in. I want to make sure that it doesn't get lost. I just think that people right now probably are just not at that spot where they know exactly how they want to handle it. If they want to be involved,
yeah,
it ends up being 2 or 3 people. Okay, so yeah, we can add it to business arising.
So can I suggest maybe for the January meeting, people come back to us if they have,
Sure.
or between now and then, right? They can always maybe with an email.
For sure.
And then just maybe kind of figure out in January just how are we moving forward. Not saying to put it on the agenda as a topic to work through, but just as, okay, what's our next steps, and then we can go from there.
For sure. Okay, thanks so much. I think that's a good point. We'll make that note and then we'll see how we want to handle it in January, because I do think that transition planning is something I'd like to see us pay a little more attention to, perhaps, just as far as whether that's more information, whether that's identifying a few things. So let's think on it and then let's bring that back and see what people think.
That sounds great. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. It was a lot of work that you put into that. So thank you for the report. Is Trustee Guzzo back with us? So I could certainly, I don't have anything prepared. I could probably pull together a quick trustee update, but I feel like I'm in a little bit of Seac chair mode right now. What I would suggest is perhaps we could have that report sent out if everybody's amiable to that. And if there's any questions about it, they could certainly email directly to ask. Are people okay with that? Yes, no, hands up. Yes, Paul, that's okay. Yeah, okay, Rhonda. Okay, perfect. Great. Thanks, guys. Okay. Okay, perfect. All the yeses. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so Seac discussion. I don't have, we have some allocation time-wise for it there. I don't have anything, nothing's been brought up, but this is the time if there's anything that, I feel like we've done a lot of great discussions tonight. I'm really excited about the notes that we've made. Is there anything that anybody wanted to bring forward for Seac discussion this evening? No? Okay. The next item on our agenda is item number 10. And so the meeting summary, we talked about taking all of the notes we've made tonight in our goal setting. I'll work together with Andrea to compile those and summarize those, and then we will share those at the January meeting. And I think the idea is great of breaking out perhaps in different discussion groups to talk about how maybe each one we want to address and move forward and attach some action item and timelines to those. So I will work on that and get that for the next meeting. Our next meeting date is Monday, January the 25th. Oh, it's my husband's birthday. I may have to log in live from well, we won't be at restaurants at that point, so it won't matter. And at that meeting, we will have the election of the chair and vice chair. And then the next item I have is a resolution for absenteeism. So I've received. Sorry, go ahead. Yep, Maria.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I can't type fast enough.
That's okay.
You mentioned the election of chair and vice chair, and I'm just curious. I know usually we don't have voting because usually there's maybe only one person nominated, but has consideration been given to how that would be done if we do have the need for a vote? We ran into this in our school council, and it turned out to be a bit of a thing.
I think the way, and I wanted to have some conversation around it with Stephanie and Andrea to see, but I think the way that the way that we did it at the board table was that for anyone that wasn't present, and none of us are present there, is that we can have a scrutineer that you can call or email your vote to. And so perhaps that could be Stephanie, putting you on the spot, Stephanie, but that could perhaps be Stephanie. And so she could take phone calls, we could pause that piece of the agenda. She could take phone calls or emails from people and then provide the tally. Stephanie, is that what we're thinking?
Yes, Brenda. Yeah, I thought we would follow the same process that we would have for the board meeting, and that we would have had planned for policy as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns with that process? Does that work? Okay. So what we'll do is prior to the meeting then is, you all have Stephanie's email, but we'll just make sure that we provide Stephanie's email, recap the process and all the contact information. And then when we get to that part of the voting, then that's how we'll handle it. We can take a pause in the meeting and that's how we'll handle it.
Yeah, we can send a separate email just for that purpose.
Perfect. Does that answer your question, Maria?
Yeah, it does. And again, I know it's not usually an issue, but I was just kind of wondering about it. And I thought with our school council, I thought there was a way to do it on Teams that it was confidential, but then it didn't end up working out because I think you had to have a separate group set up. I don't know all the details, but again, if everyone's fine, I mean, I'm fine with that. Some people might prefer to have it confidential, but again, it's not usually an issue, but sometimes when you don't expect something, that's when
Sure.
it happens. But anyway, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we had thought the same thing, that there was a way to do it on Teams, but I think it is way more complicated than I think it becomes cumbersome. But we can also make sure, I mean, obviously the scrutineers will make sure that the ballots are completely private. So while I totally understand the need for some people to want to be anonymous in casting their vote, we can obviously make sure that I have no concerns on that piece, but it's important to mention that. Okay, so great. Thanks for the question, Maria. So 12.1, resolution for absenteeism. I did receive regrets this evening from Marvin and Michelle. So I just need a motion to resolve that Marvin Dwart and Michelle Arteaga be excused. Thanks, Maria. Moved by Maria. Is there anyone that can second that? And Rick, second, thank you. Okay, so I just need a motion to adjourn, and then we will do the closing prayer. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Diane, are you moving in or seconding the motion to adjourn?
Yes, whatever you want.
Okay, so moved by Diane. Do I have someone to second that motion? Great, thanks, Paul. Paul seconded it. If you can all join me in the sign of our faith for our closing prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work, so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Thank you, everyone. I know that we are going to do a little bit of a social. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stay on.